My name is Clark Peterson, and I'm a 32-year-old architect from Boston. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, marrying my fiancée, Stephanie, the most amazing pediatric nurse who stole my heart 3 years ago. As I stood at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle in her stunning white dress, my joy was shadowed by the empty seats on my side of the church. Not a single member of my family showed up, not even my parents or my best friend Jake. Later, I discovered why they all abandoned me on my wedding day. They chose to attend my sister Tara's impromptu engagement party instead. I was hurt, but determined not to let their absence ruin our special day. But just as Stephanie and I cut our wedding cake, my phone lit up with a message I couldn't ignore. If you're watching this video right now, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how my wedding day turned into an unexpected family showdown that would change everything. I grew up in a quiet suburb just outside Boston, in what seemed like a typical middle-class American family. My dad, James, worked as a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm, while my mom, Linda, taught second grade at the local elementary school. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family unit, but appearances can be deceiving. From my earliest memories, there was always an unspoken hierarchy in our household. My younger sister Tara, who arrived 3 years after me, somehow became the sun around which our family orbited. It wasn't something I fully understood as a child, but looking back now, the pattern was unmistakable. When I was 10 and brought home a first-place science fair trophy, my parents gave a quick good job before rushing to Tara's dance recital. When I turned 16, my birthday dinner was cut short because Tara had a minor cold. My high school graduation fell on the same day as Tara's middle school awards ceremony, and my parents attended hers, instead catching only the last 15 minutes of my milestone event. "Your sister needs more support," my mother would often say. "You're so independent, Clark. You understand, don't you?" And I did try to understand, to be the good son who didn't make waves. I buried myself in academics and extracurricular activities, finding validation outside my home since it was in short supply within it. While Tara got new clothes and the latest gadgets, I worked part-time jobs from age 15 to buy what I needed. College was my escape. I won a partial scholarship to Boston University for architecture, but it only covered about half the costs. When I asked my parents for help with tuition, they seemed uncomfortable. "We're saving for Tara's education," my father explained. "She might want to go somewhere expensive. You know how special her talents are." So I worked 30 hours a week at a campus cafe and took out loans for the rest. I barely slept those 4 years, but I graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position at a respected architecture firm in downtown Boston. Each achievement came with the hope that maybe this time my parents would show genuine pride in me. They didn't come to my college graduation either. Tara had a summer cold. Despite everything, I continued seeking their approval. I would bring projects home, share news about promotions, invite them to events where my designs were featured. The response was always lukewarm at best, with conversations quickly shifting to Tara's latest accomplishment, no matter how trivial. By my late 20s, I had established myself professionally. I was leading design teams on major commercial projects and had even won a regional award for an innovative, sustainable office building. My career was thriving, but emotionally I still felt like that little boy desperately trying to make his parents notice him. Then I met Stephanie. It happened at a charity auction for the children's hospital where she worked. My firm had donated design services, and I was there representing our company. Stephanie was helping organize the event, and we ended up seated at the same table. She had this warm laugh that immediately drew me in, and eyes that seemed to really see me when we talked. Our connection was immediate, and unlike anything I'd experienced before. On our third date, she asked about my family, and something in her genuine interest made me open up completely. I told her everything, including things I'd never admitted to anyone else. "That sounds incredibly painful," she said, squeezing my hand, And honestly, Clark, it sounds like they've been gaslighting you your whole life. No one had ever validated my experience like that before. Stephanie helped me recognize patterns I'd been too close to see clearly. She pointed out how my constant need to overachieve, to prove my worth, stemmed from years of emotional neglect. As our relationship deepened, I was welcomed into Stephanie's family with open arms. Her parents, Robert and Diane, treated me with more warmth and genuine interest in 2 months than I'd received from my own parents in decades. Her brother, Tim, became the sibling I'd always wished for, someone who celebrated my successes rather than competing with me. This is what family is supposed to feel like. Stephanie told me once after a Sunday dinner at her parents' house, left me feeling oddly emotional. You deserve this too, Clark. You always have. For the first time, I began to believe that maybe she was right. After dating for 2 years, I proposed to Stephanie during a weekend trip to Cape Cod. We stayed in a beachfront cottage, and I asked her to marry me at sunset with waves crashing against the shore. When she said yes, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Our first call was to her parents, who erupted with excitement over speakerphone. Then, with some trepidation, I called mine. "That's nice, honey," my mother said after a brief pause. "Have you set a date yet?" "We just got engaged an hour ago, Mom," I laughed, trying to hide my disappointment at her tepid response. "Well, let us know when you decide. Oh, did I tell you Tara might be getting a promotion at work? She's only been there 8 months, and already they're recognizing her potential." The conversation shifted entirely to Tara after that. When I told my sister about the engagement the next day, her response was equally underwhelming. "Cool. Hope it works out," she said before launching into a story about a guy she'd just started dating. Despite their reactions, I held on to hope that a wedding might be different. This was a major life event after all. Surely they would show up for this. Stephanie and I threw ourselves into wedding planning with enthusiasm. We decided on a June wedding, giving ourselves 10 months to prepare. We found a beautiful venue, an historic building with gardens overlooking the Charles River. Stephanie's mother helped her shop for wedding dresses, while her father offered advice on caterers he knew through his restaurant business. My parents were invited to every planning event, from venue tours to menu tastings. Each time there was an excuse. "Your father has a golf tournament that weekend." "I promised to help Tara move some furniture." "We've got a dinner with the neighbors that night." Each rejection stung, but I kept extending invitations, hoping that eventually they would participate in some meaningful way. Jake, my best friend since college, and the obvious choice for best man, was enthusiastic at first. We'd been through everything together, from all-nighters studying for finals to celebrating each other's career wins. He had always been the one person outside of Stephanie who truly understood my family situation. "I've got your back on this, man," he promised when I asked him to be my best man. "I'll throw you the best bachelor party Boston's ever seen, and I'll make sure everything goes perfectly on the big day." 8 months before the wedding, we mailed out invitations. The response cards from my family all came back with "yes" checked off. My parents, my sister, 2 aunts, an uncle, and 3 cousins all confirmed they would attend. Jake helped me plan a small bachelor party 2 weeks before the wedding. Nothing crazy, just a night out with friends from work and college. 3 days before the party, Jake called to say he might need to reschedule. "Something came up with work," he said vaguely. The bachelor party happened, but Jake showed up late and seemed distracted the entire time. He kept checking his phone and left early, citing an early morning meeting. I brushed it off as pre-wedding stress affecting everyone. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday evening, the night before our Saturday afternoon wedding. Stephanie's family arrived early to help set up at the restaurant we'd reserved. 6 o'clock came and went with no sign of my family. At 6:30, I received a text from my mother. "Something important has come up. We might be late. Start without us." By 8 o'clock, as we were finishing dessert, I received another text. "So sorry we won't make it tonight. Family emergency. See you tomorrow at the wedding." I showed the message to Stephanie, who squeezed my hand supportively. "They'll be there tomorrow," she assured me. "This is just a rehearsal. The wedding is what matters." I tried to believe her, but a knot of anxiety had formed in my stomach. I texted Jake to confirm our morning plans, and his response was equally concerning. "Might need to meet you at the church instead of beforehand. Having some car trouble." That night, as Stephanie and I parted ways to follow the tradition of not seeing each other before the wedding, she hugged me tightly. "No matter what happens tomorrow, we're starting our life together. That's the only thing that truly matters." I nodded, holding on to her words like a lifeline. But as I tried to sleep in our guest bedroom, my mind kept racing with worst-case scenarios and the painful suspicion that tomorrow might bring yet another family disappointment bigger than any that had come before. I woke up early on our wedding day, a mixture of excitement and anxiety churning in my stomach. The June morning was perfect sunlight, streaming through the curtains, with the promise of clear skies for our garden ceremony. I reached for my phone, immediately hoping for messages from my family confirming their arrival times. The screen showed nothing from them. I sent a quick text to my mother, "Morning. Looking forward to seeing everyone today. What time should we expect you at the church?" No response came as I showered and dressed in casual clothes before heading to the venue for final preparations. Stephanie and I had rented rooms at a small hotel adjacent to our venue where we would both get ready with our respective wedding parties. As I drove over, I called Jake, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Hey Jake, it's me. Just checking in about today. Call me back when you get this." By 11 o'clock, 3 hours before the ceremony, I was in my hotel room with Tim, Stephanie's brother, who had stepped up to help since Jake was still unreachable. My tuxedo hung on the door, and the photographer was capturing getting ready shots. But the atmosphere felt hollow with just the two of us. "Let me try calling your parents." Tim offered, seeing my growing distress. My father's phone went to voicemail. So did my mother's. So did Tara's. At 12:30, with the ceremony 90 minutes away, I received a text from Jake. "I'm so sorry, man. Can't make it today after all. Family stuff. You understand, right?" I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, a cold realization washing over me. They weren't coming. None of them. Tim said gently we should finish getting ready. "Stephanie is counting on you today." He was right. This was still our wedding day. I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and focused on getting dressed. Tim helped with my cufflinks and straightened my tie, stepping seamlessly into the role my best friend had abandoned. "You're family now," Tim said, giving me a brotherly hug. "And we're all here for you today." At 1:45, I took my place at the altar. The string quartet began playing, and guests turned in their seats as the procession started. I couldn't help but stare at the empty front row on the left side, reserved for my family, with small place cards bearing their names. Stephanie's side was full, extended family members and friends filling 3 rows. My side had colleagues from work, a few college friends, neighbors. All wonderful people, but the absence of blood relations was glaring. One of my coworkers, David, had agreed last minute to step in as best man after Tim explained the situation. He stood beside me now, a solid presence, offering silent support. Then the music changed, and everyone stood. The moment Stephanie appeared at the end of the aisle on her father's arm, radiant in her white gown, I felt tears spring to my eyes. Despite everything, she was here. We were doing this. Nothing else mattered in that moment. As she reached me and took my hands, she whispered, "Just us. That's all we need." The ceremony proceeded beautifully. We exchanged our personally written vows, promising to support each other through all of life's challenges. If only we'd known how soon those vows would be tested. Just before the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, I noticed David looking at his phone discreetly. His expression changed to one of shock before he quickly pocketed the device. I had no time to wonder about it, as Stephanie and I sealed our marriage with a kiss and were presented to our guests as Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. During the post-ceremony photos in the garden, David pulled me aside while Stephanie was posing with her bridesmaids. "Clark, I need to show you something," he said hesitantly. I was checking social media during a pause in the ceremony. And, well, you should see this. He handed me his phone open to Instagram. On the screen was a photo posted by my sister Tara 2 hours ago. The caption read, "Surprise engagement party. So grateful for everyone who came to celebrate with us today." The image showed Tara holding up her left hand, a diamond ring glittering on her finger. Behind her stood my parents, beaming with pride. And at the edge of the frame, looking uncomfortable but definitely present, was Jake. The timestamp showed it had been posted at the exact time Stephanie and I were exchanging our vows. "I'm so sorry," David said, taking his phone back as he saw my expression. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The family emergency wasn't an emergency at all. My entire family, along with my supposed best friend, had chosen to attend my sister's surprise engagement party instead of my wedding. The deliberate choice stunned me to my core. Somehow I made it through the remaining photos, plastering a smile on my face whenever the camera pointed my way. Stephanie noticed something was wrong, but I shook my head, slightly unwilling to burden her with this discovery on what should be the happiest day of her life. Later, I whispered, squeezing her hand, "I'll tell you later." As we prepared to enter the reception, I took a deep breath and made a decision. I wouldn't let their betrayal ruin this day for us. We had guests who genuinely cared about us waiting to celebrate our union. I would focus on them, on Stephanie, on the beginning of our life together. But beneath my determined smile, the pain of rejection cut deeper than ever before. Our reception was held in a beautifully decorated ballroom, adjacent to the garden where we'd exchanged vows. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables, adorned with white and blue floral arrangements, Stephanie's chosen colors. As the DJ announced our entrance as newlyweds, we were greeted with enthusiastic applause from everyone present. The schedule of events flowed smoothly. We had our first dance to "At Last" by Etta James, a song that felt particularly poignant given the circumstances. Stephanie's father gave a heartfelt toast about welcoming me to their family, bringing fresh tears to my eyes for entirely different reasons than earlier. To Clark and Stephanie, he concluded, raising his glass. "May you build a life together filled with the love, respect, and joy you both so richly deserve." When it came time for the best man's speech, David stepped up admirably, sharing stories of our time working together and observations about how happy Stephanie had made me. No one outside our immediate circle would have guessed he'd been pressed into service at the last minute. Throughout dinner, I made conversation with our guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes with genuine gratitude. Whenever someone innocently asked about my family's absence, Stephanie smoothly intercepted with vague mentions of unexpected circumstances before changing the subject. "You're incredible," I whispered to her during a quiet moment between courses. "How did I get so lucky?" "We're both lucky," she replied, kissing me softly. And I meant what I said at the altar. Just us, that's enough. Despite my best efforts to stay present and engaged, my thoughts kept drifting to the Instagram photo. The happiness on my parents' faces as they celebrated Tara's engagement haunted me. I'd never seen them look at me with such uninhibited joy, not even when I shared my biggest achievements. And Jake. His betrayal stung particularly sharply. He knew what this day meant to me, knew my complicated history with my family. Yet he'd chosen them over our 15 years of friendship. As the reception continued, Stephanie's relatives embraced me warmly. Her grandmother told me stories of Stephanie as a child. Her uncles included me in jokes, as if I'd always been part of their family gatherings, and her young cousins asked if they could call me Uncle Clark now. Of course I told them, ruffling their hair. I'd be honored. The moment that truly tested my composure came when it was time to cut the wedding cake. Stephanie and I stood together before the three-tiered creation decorated with hand-piped buttercream and fresh flowers. The photographer positioned herself to capture the moment, and guests gathered around with phones ready. Just as we picked up the knife together, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I tried to ignore it, but it kept buzzing repeatedly, suggesting a flood of incoming messages. Stephanie noticed my distraction. "Check it," she said quietly. "It might be important." I slipped my phone out discreetly while she chatted with the photographer about the best angle for the cake cutting. The screen was filled with notifications, but one stood out immediately. A text message from my mother that had arrived seconds ago. "We need to talk. Now." Below it was a stream of missed call notifications. I scrolled quickly, counting in disbelief. 52 missed calls in the past hour from my mother, father, Tara, and Jake. What could possibly warrant such urgency on my wedding day after they'd all deliberately chosen to skip it? The audacity was breathtaking. I silenced my phone and returned it to my pocket, a cold anger replacing the hurt I'd been nursing all day. Whatever crisis they were manufacturing now, it could wait. This moment belonged to Stephanie and me. "Everything okay?" she asked as I rejoined her. "Perfect," I said, forcing a smile. "Absolutely perfect." We cut the cake together, fed each other small bites, and laughed when I got frosting on my nose. The photographer captured it, all these genuine moments of joy amidst the undercurrent of family drama. But as the reception continued, the weight of the day's emotional roller coaster began to take its toll. During a break between dances, when Stephanie was chatting with her college roommates, I slipped outside onto a small private terrace for a moment alone. The June evening was mild, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. I leaned against the stone railing, finally allowing the mask of happiness to slip. My shoulders sagged as the full impact of my family's betrayal washed over me. This wasn't just another disappointed hope or minor slight. They had deliberately chosen Tara's last-minute engagement celebration over my wedding, an event planned for nearly a year with invitations sent 8 months in advance. The message couldn't have been clearer. I didn't matter. I had never mattered. A sob escaped before I could suppress it, tears finally breaking free after hours of careful control. I covered my mouth with my hand, not wanting anyone to hear, but unable to contain the storm of emotion any longer. I don't know how long I stood there, quietly falling apart under the stars, before I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. Stephanie had found me concern etched across her beautiful face. "David told me about the Instagram post," she said softly. "I'm so sorry, Clark. I should be used to it by now." I managed wiping my face. "But this is a new low, even for them." "You have every right to be heartbroken," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "What they did is inexcusable." We stood together in silence for several minutes, her presence gradually anchoring me back to the present, to what truly mattered. "They've been calling," I finally said. 52 missed calls in the past hour. My mother texted that, "We need to talk now." "What do you want to do?" Stephanie asked. I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "I want to go back inside and dance with my wife. I want to celebrate with the people who actually showed up for us. Whatever drama they're trying to create can wait until tomorrow." Stephanie smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "That's my husband." Hand in hand, we returned to our reception. For the rest of the evening, I focused entirely on the joy of the moment, on Stephanie's radiant smile, on the love surrounding us from her family and our friends. My phone continued to vibrate occasionally in my pocket, but I ignored it completely. As we shared our last dance of the night, Stephanie rested her head on my shoulder. "Today was perfect," she whispered, "because I married you." And in that moment, despite everything I knew, she was right. The morning after our wedding, Stephanie and I woke in our hotel suite to more messages and missed calls. Our original plan had been to leave for our honeymoon to Hawaii that afternoon, giving us a relaxed morning together before heading to the airport. Now those plans felt complicated by the barrage of communication from my family. 52 missed calls yesterday, and another 23 overnight. I said, scrolling through my phone. What could possibly be so urgent after they chose to miss our wedding? Stephanie sat beside me on the edge of the bed, her hand on my shoulder. What do you want to do? I considered ignoring them completely, boarding our flight, and dealing with whatever this was after our honeymoon. But the thought of this hanging over us for 2 weeks didn't sit well either. I think I need to face this, I finally said. Get it over with, so we can enjoy our honeymoon without this shadow following us. After a quick breakfast, we drove to my parents' suburban home. Despite my protests, Stephanie insisted on coming with me. We're a team now, she said firmly. I'm not letting you face this alone. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed multiple cars parked along the street, including Jake's recognizable blue Subaru and Tara's white Audi. Apparently, this was to be a full family confrontation. My father opened the door before we could knock, his face drawn with an expression I couldn't quite read. Relief, concern, irritation. Finally, he said, "You couldn't have answered any of our calls." The audacity of his complaint ignited immediate anger in me. I was busy getting married, I replied coldly. Something all of you chose to skip. He had the decency to look uncomfortable as he led us into the living room. My mother sat on the sofa, red-eyed, as if she'd been crying. Tara perched on the armchair, her new engagement ring prominently displayed. Jake stood awkwardly by the window, unable to meet my gaze. "Clark?" My mother began, her voice wavering. "We need to explain." "Explain what?" I asked, remaining standing with Stephanie beside me, declining their gesture to sit. "Explain how all of you, my entire family and supposed best friend, decided that Tara's surprise engagement party was more important than my wedding. A wedding you RSVP'd yes to 8 months ago." It wasn't like that, Jake mumbled. "Then what was it like, Jake?" I turned to face him directly. "Because from where I'm standing, my best man abandoned me without explanation to attend my sister's party instead." The room fell into uncomfortable silence until my mother spoke again. "We thought you wouldn't mind," she said, each word revealing the depth of their delusion. "Tara's engagement was such a surprise, and we couldn't miss it." "Couldn't miss it?" I repeated incredulously. "It was a surprise engagement, not a medical emergency. You absolutely could have said, 'Congratulations, Tara, but we have Clark's wedding today.' That was a choice you made." Tara fidgeted with her ring. "Jason planned it for months. He didn't know about your wedding." "Then why didn't you tell him?" Stephanie spoke up for the first time, her voice calm but firm. "Why didn't any of you say something?" No one had an answer to that. "The truth is," I continued, the realization crystallizing as I spoke, "you didn't want to come to our wedding. This was just a convenient excuse." "That's not fair, Clark," my father protested weakly. "Isn't it?" I challenged. "None of you have been involved in any part of our wedding planning. You've skipped every event, offered no help, shown no interest. The engagement party was just the final insult." Jake stepped forward then, looking miserable. "I need to tell you something, Clark. Your parents. They called me last week. They said they needed me at Tara's party, that it was important to show a united family front." I stared at him in disbelief. "And you agreed?" Without even talking to me. He nodded, shame evident on his face. "I've known your family almost as long as I've known you. When they pressure you, it's hard to say no." His confession shifted something in the room. My mother's expression changed from wounded to defensive. "We didn't pressure anyone," she insisted. "We simply explained the importance of family loyalty." Family loyalty. I laughed without humor. That's rich coming from you. Where was your loyalty to me yesterday? Clark Tara interjected. You're being dramatic. It was just one day. Just one day, Stephanie echoed, her usual calm demeanor slipping. It was his wedding day. The one day when family is supposed to show up no matter what. The conversation spiraled from there, layers of long-buried resentments and patterns surfacing rapidly. As tensions escalated, the truth finally emerged in pieces. Tara admitted that her engagement hadn't actually been a surprise to my parents. They'd known about it for weeks. Her fiancé Jason had originally planned to propose the weekend before, but Tara had suggested changing it to our wedding day. I just thought it would be special, she defended, when Stephanie called her out on the deliberate scheduling conflict. 2 celebrations in one weekend. My mother's contribution to the revelation was equally disturbing. Weddings happen all the time, she said dismissively. Tara deserved her moment too. She could have had her moment any other day, I pointed out. You all made a choice. My father, perhaps sensing the conversation was not going their way, attempted a different approach. We're sorry if you felt hurt, Clark. But you've always been so independent. We didn't think you needed us there. His words struck at the heart of the issue. I didn't need you there. I wanted you there. There's a difference. But clearly, what I want has never been important in this family. As the confrontation continued, the dynamic became increasingly clear. My mother displayed classic narcissistic behaviors, unable to see beyond her own and Tara's needs. My father enabled this pattern, taking the path of least resistance rather than standing up for what was right. And Tara, having been the golden child her entire life, saw nothing wrong with commandeering my wedding day for her own celebration. Jake eventually broke down, completely admitting that my parents had not only pressured him to attend Tara's engagement, but had also implied that his business might suffer if he chose my wedding instead. My father had connections to several of Jake's major clients through his financial advisory role. They didn't directly threaten me, Jake clarified, but the implication was clear. That's manipulation, Stephanie stated flatly, and emotional blackmail. My mother's face hardened. We were simply looking out for family interests. I'm family too, I said quietly. Or at least I thought I was. The confrontation lasted nearly 3 hours, circling through accusations, weak apologies, and revelations about family dynamics I had suspected but never fully confirmed until now. By the end, several things had become painfully clear. My parents would never acknowledge the depth of their favoritism toward Tara. Tara would never accept responsibility for her role in perpetuating this dynamic. Jake, while remorseful, had proven himself unworthy of the friendship I thought we shared. Most importantly, this pattern would never change unless I changed my response to it. As Stephanie and I prepared to leave, my mother made one last attempt to maintain control. So we're all good now, right? She asked, as if a few hours of tense conversation could erase a lifetime of emotional neglect, culminating in missing my wedding. You'll come to Tara's engagement dinner next month. I exchanged a glance with Stephanie, drawing strength from her steady presence. No, I said simply. We won't be there. And we have a plane to catch for our honeymoon now. The shock on their faces as we walked out was something I'll never forget. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had set a boundary with my family, and it felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. In the car, Stephanie took my hand. I'm proud of you, she said. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted, but it was necessary. We drove to the airport in thoughtful silence, both processing the intensity of the morning's revelations. As we waited to board our flight to Hawaii, I realized that despite everything, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth, however painful, had finally been spoken aloud. Our honeymoon could now begin without the shadow of unresolved family drama, and more importantly, our marriage could start with honest recognition of the family dynamics we would need to navigate together. After 2 blissful weeks in Hawaii, returning to real life felt like a splash of cold water. While we'd been soaking up the sun and enjoying newlywed life, my phone had accumulated dozens of messages from my family ranging from guilt-inducing, "I can't believe you're doing this to your mother," to pseudo-apologetic, "We're sorry." "You felt hurt," to outright angry. "You're tearing this family apart with your selfishness." Stephanie and I sat in our apartment the evening after our return, scrolling through the messages together. "They still don't get it, do they?" she observed, reading over my shoulder. "They've never had to," I replied. "I've always been the one to forgive, to understand, to accommodate." The pattern was so clear now. Throughout my life, I'd internalized the idea that my needs and feelings were secondary. I'd become the family peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over, who never made waves. It had cost me my self-respect and enabled their behavior to continue unchecked. "What do you want to do?" Stephanie asked, as she had so many times throughout this ordeal. I considered the question carefully. "I think I need some professional help sorting through all this. 32 years of family dynamics don't get untangled overnight." 2 days later, I had my first appointment with Dr. Laura Matthews, a therapist specializing in family trauma and narcissistic family systems. Her office was warm and welcoming, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting that immediately put me at ease. "Tell me why you're here," she invited, after we'd exchanged introductions. I explained about the wedding, the confrontation, and the lifetime of emotional neglect that had preceded these events. As I spoke, Dr. Matthews listened attentively, occasionally making notes, but mostly maintaining eye contact and nodding encouragingly. "What you're describing sounds like a classic golden child and scapegoat dynamic," she explained when I'd finished. "In families with narcissistic tendencies, one child is often elevated, while another bears the emotional burdens." Her validation of my experience was profoundly healing. For years, I'd questioned whether I was overreacting, whether I was the problem for feeling hurt by my family's treatment. Having a professional confirm that the dynamic was unhealthy lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Over the next several weeks, I continued meeting with Dr. Matthews, while Stephanie and I settled into married life. We unpacked wedding gifts, sent thank you notes, and created new routines together in our shared space. My family continued their campaign of messages, alternating between apologies and accusations depending on the day. After a month of therapy, I felt ready to attempt a controlled reconnection with my parents. Dr. Matthews and I had discussed healthy boundaries and prepared strategies for maintaining them during difficult conversations. I invited my parents to meet for coffee at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. Stephanie offered to come, but I decided to handle this conversation alone, armed with new insights and techniques from therapy. The meeting was tense from the start. My mother arrived with a list of grievances about how I had embarrassed the family by walking out on our previous conversation and ignoring Tara's engagement celebrations. My father sat mostly silent, occasionally nodding along with my mother's complaints. "I didn't come here to discuss Tara's engagement," I said calmly when she paused for breath. "I came to talk about our relationship moving forward." "What's that supposed to mean?" my mother asked suspiciously. "It means that things need to change if we're going to have a healthy relationship," I explained. "I need you to respect my boundaries, acknowledge my feelings as valid, and recognize that Stephanie is my family now." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Of course she's family now. We never said otherwise." "Your actions say otherwise," I pointed out. "When you chose to attend Tara's last-minute engagement party instead of my wedding, you made your priorities very clear." My mother's face hardened. "We've already apologized for that. How long are you going to hold it against us? You've said you're sorry I felt hurt." I clarified. "That's not the same as acknowledging that your actions were hurtful. There's a difference." The conversation continued in this vein, with me attempting to establish boundaries and my parents resisting at every turn. My mother deflected responsibility, my father avoided conflict, and neither seemed capable of genuine empathy. "This isn't working," I finally said, after an hour of circular conversation. "I'd like to try again, when you're ready to really listen." As I stood to leave, my mother grabbed my wrist. "If you walk away now, don't expect us to keep trying. We won't beg for your attention, Clark." I gently removed her hand. "I'm not asking you to beg. I'm asking you to respect me." There's a difference there, too. Similar attempts at reconciliation with Tara proved equally fruitless. She maintained that I was overreacting about the wedding day conflict and refused to acknowledge any pattern of favoritism in our family. "You've always been jealous of my relationship with Mom and Dad," she accused during our one-phone conversation. "Now you're trying to make me the villain because you can't handle that they love me more." Her brutal honesty, however unintentional, was actually refreshing. At least she was admitting the dynamic I'd felt my entire life. "I'm not jealous, Tara," I replied. "I'm hurt. And I'm finally recognizing that I deserve better." Jake made several attempts to rebuild our friendship, showing up at our apartment unannounced, and sending lengthy text messages expressing his remorse. While his apologies seemed more genuine than my family's, the damage to our friendship felt irreparable. "I trusted you," I told him during a difficult conversation over coffee. "Of all people, you knew what my relationship with my family was like. You knew what the wedding meant to me." "I messed up," he admitted. "I let your parents intimidate me, and I'll regret it forever." "I appreciate your honesty," I said. "But I need time to figure out if our friendship can recover from this." Throughout these challenging weeks, Stephanie remained my rock. Her unwavering support and her family's continued warmth provided a stark contrast to the toxicity of my biological family. Sunday dinners with her parents became a healing ritual, showing me what healthy family dynamics looked like. 6 weeks after the wedding, Dr. Matthews helped me reach a difficult but necessary decision. After numerous attempts at establishing boundaries with my family, all met with resistance and manipulation, I needed to significantly limit contact for my own mental health. "This isn't about punishing them," Dr. Matthews assured me. "It's about protecting yourself and your new marriage from patterns that have caused you pain throughout your life." That evening, Stephanie and I discussed what limited contact might look like practically. "I support whatever you decide," she said. "But I want you to make this choice for yourself, not because you feel pressured in either direction." After much consideration, I composed a clear, compassionate email to my parents and Tara. I explained that I needed space to focus on my marriage and mental health, that I would be limiting communication for the foreseeable future, and that I was open to rebuilding our relationship in the future if they could respect my boundaries. I didn't expect a positive response, and I didn't receive one. My phone exploded with angry calls and messages, accusing me of being cruel, selfish, and unstable. The intensity of their reaction only confirmed that I was making the right decision. "They've shown you who they are," Stephanie said as we blocked their numbers together. "Now you're finally believing them." The weeks that followed were both challenging and liberating. There were moments of doubt, of guilt, of wondering whether I was overreacting. But for every moment of uncertainty, there were countless others of peace, of genuine connection with Stephanie and her family, of rediscovering who I was outside of the role I'd played in my family's dysfunction. 3 months after our wedding, I received an unexpected package in the mail. Inside was a wedding album, beautifully bound in leather, with a note from Tim, Stephanie's brother. "I know your big day had some tough moments, but I hope you'll remember how much love was in that room. You're my brother now, and that means something in our family." The album contained dozens of photos capturing genuine moments of joy. Stephanie and me exchanging vows, dancing together, feeding each other, cake, laughing with friends. The empty seats on my side of the ceremony were visible in some shots, but they didn't dominate the images. What dominated was the love that had filled that day despite the absences. As I showed Stephanie the album that evening, I realized something important. "They didn't ruin our wedding," I said with quiet certainty. "They missed it. There's a difference." She smiled, understanding exactly what I meant. And that was their loss. 1 year after our wedding, Stephanie and I celebrated our anniversary with a quiet dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. So much had changed in those 12 months, both around us and within me. Our apartment now truly felt like a home filled with photographs of happy moments, furniture we'd chosen together, and the comfortable rhythms of shared life. "To us," Stephanie said, raising her glass, "for surviving year one with more strength than when we started." "To us," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. "And to the future." That future looked brighter than I could have imagined during those dark days following our wedding. My career had flourished with a promotion to senior design architect at my firm and a major sustainability project that was garnering attention in industry publications. Stephanie had been recognized for her work in pediatric care with a Hospital Excellence Award. Together, we'd found a balance that supported both our professional aspirations and our relationship. But the most significant changes weren't external. They were the quiet revolutions happening within my understanding of family belonging and self-worth. The limited contact with my biological family had been maintained throughout the year, not without challenges. There had been holiday guilt trips, flying monkeys in the form of distant relatives, calling to tell me how much I was hurting my poor mother, and several dramatic health scares that turned out to be exaggerated attempts to regain contact. Through it all, therapy with Dr. Matthews continued to be my anchor. She helped me recognize manipulation tactics and develop strategies to maintain boundaries without spiraling into guilt. More importantly, she guided me through the process of grieving the family I had always wanted but never had. "Grief isn't just about death," she explained. During a particularly insightful session, "It's about losing our expectations, our hopes for relationships that simply aren't possible in their current form." That perspective helped me gradually release the fantasy that my parents would suddenly transform into the supportive, loving family I had craved my entire life. Instead, I focused on appreciating the genuine connections I did have. Stephanie's family continued to embrace me wholeheartedly. Her father taught me woodworking in his garage workshop, a hobby that became therapeutic, as I created tables and shelves for our home with my own hands. Her mother invited me to help with holiday cooking, sharing family recipes and stories that made me feel included in their history. "You know you're stuck with us forever now, right?" Tim joked during a weekend fishing trip that had become a monthly tradition. "Seriously though, Clark, I always wanted a brother. I'm glad Stephanie found you." Beyond family, I'd rebuilt my social circle with intentionality. The wedding day betrayal had shown me the importance of surrounding myself with people who demonstrated their loyalty through actions, not just words. I'd reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with, and forged deeper connections with colleagues who shared my values. Jake and I had one final conversation 6 months after the wedding meeting at a park near my office. He'd continued reaching out periodically, and I finally felt ready to provide closure. "I've forgiven you," I told him honestly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the same relationship. Too much trust has been broken." He nodded, clearly disappointed but accepting. "I understand. For what it's worth, I've learned a lot from losing your friendship. I won't make the same mistake again." "I hope not," I replied. "You're a good person, Jake. Just not the friend I need right now." We parted with a handshake and the knowledge that some chapters truly do close, making room for new ones to begin. The most profound change came 3 months before our anniversary, when Stephanie shared news that shifted our world on its axis we were expecting a baby. The joy of impending parenthood brought with it both excitement and deep reflection. I want to be for this child what my parents never were for me. I told Dr. Matthews after sharing the news, but I'm scared of repeating patterns I don't even realize I've internalized. She smiled warmly. The fact that you're asking these questions already puts you leagues ahead. Awareness is the first step in breaking cycles. Stephanie and I spent hours discussing the kind of parents we wanted to be, the values we hoped to instill, the traditions we wanted to create. Each conversation strengthened our bond and clarified our vision for our growing family. Our child will never doubt they're loved, Stephanie promised as we painted the nursery together. Never. As our anniversary dinner concluded, we strolled along the Charles River, the same waters that had flowed past our wedding venue a year before. The evening was mild stars emerging in the darkening sky, remarkably similar to that moment on the terrace when Stephanie had found me at our reception. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked the question that had lingered in quiet moments. Marrying into all this complexity, Stephanie stopped walking, turning to face me with the directness I'd always loved about her. "Not for a single second," she said firmly. "The hardest parts of this year have shown me the best parts of you, Clark. Your courage, your resilience, your capacity for growth. I'm proud to be your wife and the mother of your child." Her words washed over me like a healing balm, soothing the last remnants of doubt. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, and challenges certainly remained. My sister's wedding invitation had arrived the previous week, prompting another round of family pressure and difficult decisions. The impending birth of our child would inevitably raise questions about grandparent involvement and family boundaries. But standing there with Stephanie, watching the river flow steadily onward, I felt a profound sense of peace. Family, I had learned, wasn't defined by blood or obligation. It was defined by consistent love. By showing up, by creating spaces where people could be authentically themselves without fear or pretense. My family of origin had missed my wedding day, but in doing so they had unintentionally gifted me with clarity. Their absence had made room for the presence of genuine love. Their rejection had paved the way for self-acceptance. Their choices had accelerated my journey toward the life and family I truly deserved. I used to think that blood was the strongest bond, I said, as we resumed our walk hand in hand. But I've learned that chosen family can be even stronger. The people who choose to love us, who show up when it matters, who see us for who we really are and stay anyway, those are the connections worth nurturing. Stephanie squeezed my hand. And that's what we'll teach our child. As we made our way home under the canopy of stars, I felt profound gratitude for the painful but necessary lessons of the past year. The wedding day betrayal that had once seemed like the worst possible hurt had ultimately become the catalyst for my most meaningful growth. Some people spend their entire lives trapped in toxic family systems, never recognizing their worth or claiming their right to be treated with respect. I had been given the chance to break that cycle, not just for myself, but for the child who would soon join our family. That was a gift beyond measure. Have you ever had to choose between family obligation and self-respect? It's one of the hardest decisions we face in life. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and growth. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to me and reminds us all that even in our most challenging moments, we're never truly alone. Until next time, remember that family isn't just about who you're related to. It's about who shows up for you when it matters most.